Oh my goodness, there were so many people who were deep in practical application and had stories of success. That was amazing.
Learning from Normal Work podcast with Dr. Marcin Nazaruk.
Diane, so you've just organized a conference about safety too. Actually, just returned from that conference that happened just last week. And it appeared it was the world's largest event on this particular topic, bringing together experts and practitioners alike. Tell me, what were your three most important highlights from that week of talks and panels and conversations?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to remind people what Safety 2 is. Let's just go with that first, which is that uh, it's actually about not waiting for failure to happen, so that we don't just look at our metrics and think, oh, we've got a problem here or not a problem here. Because of course we know that over the years, organizations have become safer and safer. So instead, what Safety 2 is about looking at normal work. And I know that Martin, you really stand for that. So you're the kind of like the beacon of the biggest beacon of Safety 2 practical application in the world. So thank you. So let's go back to the three big things. Well, the first thing is that, oh my goodness, there were so many people who were deep in practical application and had stories of success. That was amazing. And the second thing is that the stories of success on learning teams was not what I had expected. I because I mean we find it, generally speaking, difficult to embed learning teams within an organization because it feels like a new process, and people worry that it will end up like Six Sigma, where basically you Six Sigma everything and then it becomes a burden, a process burden on the organization. But the stories that I heard of the embedment of learning teams was more about that that things had happened, incidents had happened, and they were doing incident investigations, and then repeats were happening, and realizing that they had to look more deeply into the everyday work to understand what were the different things that were combining together to cause an issue. And so then, of course, people were able to then embed learning teams as something in the organization that would be able to look at everyday work. But it wasn't for like loads and loads of learning teams. It was just risk based. And I thought a great example was from Barbara Cristenziani from Quanta, where there was a particular kind of activity where people were told not to put their hands near a piece of equipment. But when the learning team was done, it was found that it was impossible to do the work without being in the line of fire. So that was very exciting. And the third thing was a an insight from Adam Johns. And so Adam Johns brought us, had gone to the conference 3 years ago, and then had learned all about how changing the language of an organization can make a huge difference. So, rather than saying what is the risk, we say, what is the problem we're trying to solve? For what is the difficulty? What's the difficulty here? And what he said was that for all of us who are struggling to get this approach um, embedded in an organization, that actually you can start with a particular incident, and you can then do the Safety 2 approach, which is looking at all the underlying issues rather than just looking at what happened on the day. You can imagine that your organization is a kind of an opaque ball, and use and then if there's an incident, you can see a little window opening in the surface of the ball, and you can look inside to the reality of the organization and work as imagined versus work as done. And I think people found that an incredibly powerful thought in terms of how we actually make the case for doing the enabling human performance, systems thinking, safety 2 approach.